Hello everybody, my name is Transonics, and today we're going to be talking about warrior tactics. So, the warrior is a melee range tank class, essentially. He's a big-ass bruiser brawler with heavy armor and a big-ass sword, and also quite a lot of CC. So, what are the two primary ways you can play a warrior? Well, as always, there's two specs you can go into, and one of them is tank and one of them is DPS. And these are interchangeable between whatever you feel like doing and whatever you feel like playing, but I'm going to go through the basics of playing both and then get a little more into the positioning itself. So, let's start with the tanking. Well, PvE tanking is pretty simple, you know, you just run around, generate threat on whatever you can and keep them locked down on yourself. Since the warrior relies on heavy armor, they don't need to dodge as much as you might think. Sometimes it's worth taking a telegraph to the face just to preserve your teammates a little longer or keep threat a little more. So you can have that risk there. That's not to say that you should always tank telegraphs to your face, but you can do that. That's an option to you. And in PvP, it's a similar thing. That's a similar thing to you. It's important to note that taunts still apply to PvP, including arenas and battlegrounds and things like that. So if you taunt an enemy champion, excuse me, I've been playing too much League of Legends. If you taunt an enemy player, like you taunt the enemy DPS, then all the damage they do to other targets is reduced, and the damage they do to you is the same. So you want to jump into that taunt and then jump in front of their telegraphs and shit, and try and get the damage reduction as much as you can, and literally pull aggro on the enemy players. But a tank in PvP is still viable, believe it or not. It's generally just a CC lord. A lot of the very light classes like Spellslinger and Esper definitely require a lot of kiting and a lot of mobility and a lot of jumping around. So as a tank warrior, what you want to be doing is getting all up in their face. You want to be pulling them back, you want to be tethering them, knocking them down, interrupting their classes. You want to just generally make it as hard as you possibly can for them to not get away, and you want to minimize their DPS while maximizing your DPS's DPS. Do you understand that? So positioning wise, you're going to want to be as close as possible all the time. This means that your limited action set will have to be based around gap closes and CC, and you'll probably sacrifice a lot of damage, especially if you're tanking. So if you sacrifice the damage, yeah, you're going to need to play your role well, but trust me, the utility you get from being just a CC master is almost essential when you tank warrior in PvP. I'm sorry, I focus on PvP all the time because I'm not a big PvE player. But anyway, that's tanking. Let's get on to DPSing. DPSing is the similar style but slightly different. Remember that the targets you're killing, like Spellslingers and Espers and the occasional medic, they're gonna be squishy, right? They have light armor or medium armor most of the time. They have a lot of mobility, sure, but if you get them locked down, even for a brief instance, and then just start pummeling them, then you can crush their bones within seconds. You want to take a lot of your high DPS skills, maybe I would say only 2 CC abilities, and then fill the rest up with DPS and maybe, oh well, of course a gap closer, but maybe 1 self-sustainability, but you know, that will probably not be necessary. So as a DPS warrior, you want to get right into the fray, as always. They're a bruiser, they're a brawler, they're close range, they got the power arm, they got the sword, like they've got everything you need to just wreck through your opponents, and you want to minimize the amount of time it takes to do that, because look, as soon as you jump onto the enemy DPS, it starts a countdown. Let's visualize this for a second. It starts a countdown. You jump onto the enemy DPS, suddenly you have 10 seconds, and you have 10 seconds on your health bar. You have your effective HP running for about 10 seconds, and this will be shredded down and shredded down. It depends how much peeling the DPS gets, but it'll be shredded down and shredded down to the point where you die. And if the DPS can outlast you for that 10 seconds, you failed your job, you failed your mission, and you're kind of screwed. You've made a big mistake. But if you can kill that DPS in that short 10-second window, and you can get away in time, that's an entirely different story. That is your goal, that is your job. You want to cut through the enemy DPS. You want to just mince them and tread the bones. I cannot stress this enough. They just must not get away. You have to, if you commit 100% to killing an enemy DPS, They cannot escape. Drill that into your brain. Wait for them to use their gap closes or their CC, and then pull them back into you, or jump them towards you. But just DPS them as much as you can, tread the bones, and you should be able to do it. But that brings me to positioning. As I said, they're melee range, but they are very tanky. So you want to be either, if you're playing a CC tank, near your DPS and your healer, trying to make sure they don't get ripped apart by a stalker, for instance, or you want to be just right into the fray, really nearby all the enemy DPS and all the enemy damage. You want to be pressuring and zoning them away from your healers. You want to be pushing them back and just being right there and saying, hey, I'm a warrior, I'm a badass motherfucker, I'm gonna kick you in your face. That's pretty much the basics of positioning and warrior tactics. I hope this explained a little bit about how to play warrior mainly in PvP. I will go into specifics in the future, but I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a good day. Bye.